So I watched this video, and it wasn't really necessarily a video as much as it was an audio recording, but it was, a video on YouTube. And it was of Ram Dass. And Ram Dass was talking about, and for those who don't know who Ram Dass is, Ram Dass famously came up with Timothy Leary back when they both got kicked out of Harvard for their experiments with LSD, and he became kind of a guru of sorts when he changed his name to Ram Dass, because that's not his original birth name. But I watched a video of him, and he was saying the problem with psychedelics is that it's a high. And like any high, you come down from the high and then you're low again. And that he struggled with that for a bit. And that when he was learning from his masters, his like meditation masters, that he was struggling with certain steps on the later stages of his practice of meditation because of the psychedelics. And although they were great in introducing him to a lot of these concepts and even getting him into the concept of meditating and all that, it seemed to have been holding him back in that way. And so that's what I thought about with weed, was that I felt like weed was a similar thing. And with psychedelics, for me, I still think I'm benefiting from them. So I don't think I'm at the point where I'm like going to do that, like where I'm like, all right, I'm stopping that too, and I'm only going to meditate. I don't think I'm fully there yet. But I do think that is kind of where ultimately I'd like to go, where, microdosing I think is its own animal. So that's something that I would like to continue to do for various reasons. But in terms of overall tripping, I mean, I think it's definitely useful to trip, but it doesn't need to be very frequent. And I already don't trip very frequently. I'm sure this podcast probably gives you the impression that I'm like just tripping balls all the time. I'm not at all. When it comes to actually like having a full-on trip and a full-on experience, it's not super frequent for me. But if I'm going to do it, then either it's going to be for a fun social gathering with my friends, that's its own type of trip, or it'll be for something like this, where I was, self-reflective and I wanted to think about things that I wanted to change. So I was thinking about that a lot, and I was really resonating with that concept. And I was like, you know what? I really do want to gain this power through meditation, through my own body's ability to process this stuff and to improve my practice and my mental focus. Because for me, it's so important to have balance, and have balance from your internal, your own internal powers or substance, rather than an external one. So I think it's really awesome that psychedelics are able to put you into a state of mind which allow you to see things from a totally different perspective, that take you so far outside of yourself that you now can see a new version of reality, a new possibility. And it certainly is like a shortcut of sorts to these states. But if you want something sustainable, and I've said this a number of times on the podcast, if you want it to be sustainable, you have to do the work in real life. And for me, I needed to give myself permission to do that. I needed to give myself permission to say, you know what, it's okay. You love mushrooms, you love LSD, you love DMT. It's okay to know that you don't need them, or to know that like you can achieve these states without them. And if you leave them behind for a period of time, that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging anybody who's still doing them. I'm like I said, I'm not actually going to quit psychedelics or anything like that. But I just feel like I'd like to see less and less of a desire to even go there, and then only want to go there when I really want to take myself out of my momentum. If I really feel like, you know what, I've been really mindful and really meditative, and yet something still seems like I need to make an adjustment. And then at that point, 100%, I will then want to do a trip, and that will kind of like hopefully give me a new perspective. Because you get blind spots, especially if you just keep going with the momentum. There's going to be a point where there's going to be something that you're not going to be able to see because of just the way you're thinking. Your thought patterns are just not going to allow you to see whatever the revelation that could be just right in front of your nose. And so that's where psychedelics are great, because usually if your subconscious mind has some sort of awareness of that thing, that it is going to connect your conscious mind with your subconscious mind and allow you to hopefully bring those things to the surface and then address them. And then you can do whatever you want with them once they've been brought to the surface. You know, you could do nothing, and I would argue that that's going to lead to more resistance later. Or you can do something about it and make the change. So yeah, so I had that permission for myself to let go of everything, and I felt this just massive weight lifted off my shoulders. I mean, it just felt like I felt so much lighter immediately. I was like, man, I finally was able to admit that to myself in an honest way, that I'm like, you know what? I already can achieve these states through my meditation practice, so I don't need all this other stuff. And it was amazing. And at that point, it felt like almost, not like the trip was over, but like that I didn't need to keep my eyes closed anymore. Like I felt like, oh, wow, okay, I guess I got everything I needed out of that. And it had only been like 40 minutes or so that I had kind of gone through that process. And obviously, me giving you this version is a very condensed version compared to what I went through in my experience. But in terms of what's sticking overall and what stood out to me as the most important in that 40-minute period, that was it.